That's why you want to see one. All together, okay, honey? This is funny.
There you go.
Okay, I'm gonna be right back. Okay, when I go there, you can watch my phone. YouTube. There you go.
Come here, Callie.
But I'm a big girl. I don't need this stuff. I need this. Well, when you're a teacher.
Good evening. I see everybody's getting logged in. Make sure you mute yourself when you aren't wanting to ask a question. We'll also use the chat function. If you want to put any questions into the chat as we go along, or I will hope to not talk too much and leave some time for questions at the end. Welcome, everybody. All right, we're going to get started in just a couple minutes. I want to honor your time. Happy Sunday. How's everybody going? How's the challenge going so far? Give me some thumbs up, some feedback in the chat if you'd like. Last week, your assignment from a nutrition perspective was to kind of pay more attention to the brain and the stomach connecting. So try to pay attention to how satisfied am I? Oh no, Matt got COVID. How satisfied am I? How full am I? Try to connect, your brain to your stomach a little bit, that mindful eating, which we're going to talk about in a future seminar, but wanted to get you at least started on that. All right, so Jackie, am I saying this right? Alina.
I think there's, yes.
Oh, there's two. There's Aline and Alina.
Alini.
How do you pronounce it?
Alini.
Eilini. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. So both of you are doing great. Love it.
Thank you.
See that in the chat. So if you're just joining, my name is Tara Collingwood. I don't know if all of you were on or joining live and in color at Horizon West last week, but I am the sports dietitian here with F45 during these challenges, trying to help you guys with the nutrition side of the challenge. And we were just for a little bit of feedback in the chat if you want to let us know how the week is going so far. We have Matt, who said he got COVID, ruined his first week, but hopefully you will be better very soon. Are you feeling better, Matt, or are you still kind of down and out? Sometimes it depends how you're feeling. Sometimes it can take a few days after, the infection even to kind of get your energy back. All right, is that Meredith? Did I see you briefly?
Okay.
Or is that Tina? Oh, that's Tina. Hey, Tina. Do you have any announcements you need to make, or you want me to just dive in?
I think we are good to go. So we're all set. Take it away, Tara.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Tina. All right, so just a reminder, if you can, make sure you're on mute so we don't hear any of your background noise. We love your kids, but don't need to hear them screaming in the background or dogs or whatever. But we welcome questions. So I will, maybe we can do, does everyone know how to do the hand raise? If you go into the participant list, you can raise your hand. I can see, well, I guess you don't even need to go in the participant list. I can just see you there, but I can see if your hand is raised, if you have any questions as we go along, or you can put them into the chat and I will be checking that throughout a little bit. So I am going to share my screen because I do have a PowerPoint. So let's go ahead and start with that. So again, my name is Tara. I'm a sports dietitian. Excited to be with you. Lori is also on the call, Lori Bondurant. She's another sports dietitian who works with me. So for those individual consults that you can sign up for, if you want to do that between Lori and myself, depending on how many people we get signed up, the two of us will take care of you and do those individual consultations. Lori is also a board certified specialist in sports dietetics, so is used to, that's what the CSSD is behind our names. So that means that we're used to working with active individuals, with athletes and people who are having the same kinds of goals that you guys are. So tonight we are going to be talking about protein, carbs, fat, those macronutrients. We're also going to talk about muscle growth. How can I actually grow my muscles and or prevent muscle wasting as I age? For any of you over the age of 36, that's when we can actually start to measure muscle loss. Usually it's not really detected yet as measurable loss until kind of your mid to late 30s, but you could still be losing muscle even in your 20s. But generally our teens and 20s tend to be that time when we have the most hormones and the most ability to build the muscle, and then the rest of our lives we spend fighting it and trying to maintain our muscle. But we're going to talk about tips and tricks on how to maintain and or gain some muscle along the way tonight as well. So this is a lot of the, if you joined on last week, I'm going to just review real quick some of the things that we talked about last week, but some of those nutrition fundamentals, it's not just about the what you eat, but also the when you eat. Throughout these sessions, we're also going to talk about hydration and recovery, and these are sort of the main topics that I think are most important when it comes to nutrition and fueling you. So just kind of a repeat of what we talked about last time, this idea of supply and demand. Okay, so supply is energy, calories coming into your body. Okay, calories. What is a calorie? It's a unit of energy. It's that's the definition of a calorie. There's 4 things that have calories. Only 4 things that have calories: carbs, protein, fat, and alcohol. Okay, so those are the 4 things that are going to contribute to the energy, to the calories that we have on a regular basis. See, Elizabeth, can you mute yourself? I think you might be giving us some background noise. Elizabeth Moraga, I think that might be you. It's hard for me to tell right now. Okay, so, and then we've got the demand. So your demand of energy is your metabolism. That's going to be your thinking and breathing, but also the movement, the daily exercise, the daily movement and the exercise is going to contribute to that second half of the equation of demand. So you've got your just kind of metabolism. How many calories am I going to burn just sitting, just surviving? And then we've got, that movement throughout the day. So the time of day, and this is why I always say it's not just the what we eat, but really the when we eat. And you're going to hear a lot more of that as we get into the macronutrients as well tonight. And more of the reason why this is important is this idea of supply and demand. For most of us, we tend to oversupply at night when we're just going to be hanging, sitting, chilling, and we don't necessarily need all of that. So dinner, snacking after dinner, that kind of stuff. And then we tend to demand more than we supply sort of later in the day, in the evening. So, or I'm sorry, earlier in the morning. That tends to be, hold on. Okay, there we go. Okay. So that tends to be the time that we tend to, find that our demand is exceeding our supply. Again, this isn't for everybody. Some people eat first thing in the morning and eat a decent amount right after their workout or whatever, depending on when your workout is. But that's when we want to think about is how am I balancing when is the food coming in and when is the demand, when are the calories coming out, and how far apart are those? So when we're oversupplying when we don't need it, when we're demanding energy but we're not fueling, that can lead to trouble in terms of our goals of losing fat, gaining muscle, or just sort of, if you're not trying to lose anything right now but you're just trying to gain muscle, definitely the timing is going to play into that as well. So that's just kind of a brief recap of sort of the, I talked about the cash check savings and all of that last time, and how our body processes energy and that good stuff. So in terms of the timing, we want to eat, several times a day, many times a day, not just one time a day. I'm not a big fan of the intermittent fasting and all of that, because you're just shutting your body down and it's not getting the nutrients it needs when it needs it. So trying to eat, 4 to 6 times a day, depending on how long you're up and how big your meals are and all of that, 3 meals, 2 to 3 snacks a day, and eating something within an hour of getting up. Even if you're doing that early morning exercise, trying to just have maybe a little something, whether it's a piece of fruit or a couple handfuls of dry cereal like I do, and then definitely if you're a morning exerciser, having that after exercise, that is going to be really, really important to make sure that within that 30-minute window after exercise, you're putting fuel back into your tank. And that includes what we're going to talk about today, that mix of the carbs, the protein, the fat, and of course, those antioxidants from the fruits and the vegetables. So our bodies require this, nice mix of macronutrients and vitamins and minerals and water on a daily basis. And this comes from the food and the drink that we're eating. From, our main food groups are, the complex carbs or the grains, our proteins, our dairy, and then of course those fruits and vegetables. So macros, what are macros? You hear this all the time, and I think a lot of people don't even really know what a macro is. So here's your nutrition 101 lesson. Macro, a macronutrient is carb, protein, and fat. So I mentioned earlier, there's only 4 things that have calories. So alcohol is the other one. It's like the ugly stepchild that has calories as well, but doesn't have any nutritional value and is not necessary. I know you might argue that, but is not necessary for us, versus the macronutrients are nutrients because they are necessary in our body. They provide nutrition that our body needs on a daily basis in terms of the carbohydrates, protein, and fat, versus micronutrients. So macro is big, micro is small. Micronutrients are your vitamins and minerals. Okay, those are smaller, molecules versus, just the macronutrients of the carbs, protein, fat. So nutrition is very individual. And that's why I encourage you, if you are struggling this, to sign up for some individual, meetings with Lori or myself, because we can really sort of drill down into your life and, what you're dealing with, and kids, no kids, your age, how, how active you are. Are you training for something? Are you, what are you doing? How are you sleeping? Like, that's the kind of stuff we get into. We look at your supplements, we look at your medical history, we look at all of that kind of stuff, because all of that affects your nutritional needs. We're both registered dietitians. And so we have the medical, like we could be working in a hospital. We know how to deal with people who are sick, who are on medications. We know the medication interactions with certain foods or nutrients. So that's the kind of stuff, that we can delve a little bit deeper into from an individual basis. In general, though, your body composition, your size is going to be the number one thing that's going to dictate your calories, other than, of course, your activity. So the bigger you are, the more calories you need. So that's why men need more calories than women. Men have more muscle than women. Your muscle is constantly metabolically active. It's constantly moving. It's constantly burning calories, whereas fat just sits there on your body, isn't really requiring any calories to maintain it, or very few calories to maintain it, versus muscle that's like boom, 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 always constantly metabolically active. So the more you move, of course, the more calories that you are going to need in a day. So what grows muscle? No, the answer is not protein. Yes, protein is necessary, amino acids, essential amino acids, branched chain amino acids. We're going to get into that. But what ultimately grows muscle is exercise. Okay, so you cannot just sit on the couch and eat a ton of protein and expect for your muscles to get bigger. I know you know this, but I have to remind you that, it's really the exercise that you're doing that's going to grow the muscle. And then, of course, there are certain nutritional factors that are going to be important to support that muscle growth. Calories. Number one thing is going to be having enough nutrients, having enough calories, having enough energy to support that muscle. Okay. Carbohydrates, believe it or not, everyone thinks protein, 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 but I'm going to explain why carbohydrates are essential when it comes to growing muscle. Okay. And then, of course, there's your protein. And then we're going to touch real briefly on creatine and sleep, because sleep is really important when it comes to muscle growth as well. So let's talk about calories just in general for a second. So overall calories, like I said, are critical for that muscle growth. On paper, it's impossible to gain weight and lose weight at the same time. On paper, in order to gain weight, you have to have an excess of calories. In order to lose weight, you have to have a deficit of calories. But yet, nature, our human body, is able to lose weight and gain weight at the same time. In other words, we're able to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time with the right training and with the right nutrition. I often see people who lose a lot of muscle, though. Okay, so just Friday, I did an in-body on one of my WWE wrestlers. He was 280 pounds at the start of January, beginning of January, like first week of January 7th or whatever day it was that I did his in-body. And then I did it again on Friday. So it was right around a month. Lost 10 pounds. And he knew that he had lost 10 pounds. So he was all proud of himself. He was all excited. I lost 10 pounds. Well, guess what? The in-body showed that he lost 9 pounds of muscle in like less than a pound of fat. Okay. So, and he's a WWE wrestler and he exercises 6 days a week. So it's not just, don't just say, oh, well, I'm exercising, I'm not going to lose any muscle. You can. If you cut back on your calories too much, then that's going to, your body's going to take it from somewhere. I explained that, last time. It will go into that, offshore account. It will go into that, money stashed under the mattress. That's your rainy day fund, which I call the muscle. And it will, waste that muscle away when you're not giving your body enough calories. So that's why I say, making sure that you're eating enough to support your exercise. But again, on paper, it's super easy to do this, but in real life, it's like, how do I know? We don't have that gas gauge to tell us exactly when we're hitting, that magical, oh, this is how many calories you're burning. Because as the day goes on, of course, it's changing too. So that's why we want to spread the calories out throughout the day, especially around exercise, making sure that we're having those snacks before, after, meals, before, after exercise to support the exercise. but yet still have a deficit in our calories for the day if you are trying to lose weight, but not too much of a deficit that your body goes into that panic mode and starts to take it from other places. All right, so let's talk about those calories. I said there's 4 things that give us calories: carbs, protein, fat, and alcohol. The numbers behind these on the screen here, carbohydrates and protein each have 4 calories per gram. That might not mean anything to you right now, but just think about the fact that fat has 9. Okay, alcohol has 7. So this is basically energy density. So fat and protein are 4. I'm sorry, carbs and protein are 4, fat is 9. What does that mean? Fat is twice as energy dense. It gives you twice as many calories, gram for gram, as protein and carbohydrate do. And alcohol sneaks up on you with 7. Okay, and again, not necessary, no nutritional benefit, actually has lots of negative health effects to it. So, so just looking at that, just know that, okay, if I'm eating fat, eating a lot of fat, that's more calorically dense. So yes, nuts are healthy, but they're also very calorically dense. Peanut butter is great, but it's very calorically dense. Olive oil is healthy, but 1 tablespoon is 120 calories. Okay, so it adds up. It adds up. The fat adds up, and we're going to talk about each of these individual. All right, so let's talk about carbs. Carbs are your body's preferred source of energy. There is actually an RDA minimum for adults, and that is 130 grams a day. So if you've ever done the keto, the Atkins, the whatever, and they want you to eat 30 grams of protein of carbs a day, that's crazy. Okay, we don't want that little. We need carbohydrates. We need carbohydrates to live. So most of us are going to need about 3 to 5 grams per kilogram body weight. If I'm working with a Ironman triathlete who's running 50 miles a week, biking, 150 miles a week, and swimming however many miles a week, they could need as many as 10 grams per kilogram body weight. But it's really those high crazy endurance athletes that are going to need that much. But I have worked with athletes that actually require that much. Most of us that are just doing F45, working a day job, living a normal life and not in the Olympics, we're talking, more like 3 to 4 to maybe 5 grams per kilogram body weight. So again, to figure out your grams of body, or your kilograms of body weight, just take your weight, divide by 2.2. So a 200-pound male is about 90 kilos, and they're going to need about 272 to 454 grams. Oh, that says protein. I meant carbs. Sorry. Grams of carbs per day. And then the 140-pound female needs about 190 to 318. Now, I realize that this is a large range, okay? So if you are trying to lose weight, you would go on more the lower end of the range. Of course, we can also calculate carbohydrates based on your calories. So knowing the calories that you're burning, if you have a Whoop, or if you are using like my Garmin will calculate my calories, tell me how many calories I'm burning for the day. So if you have a calorie goal and all that, usually I'm recommending about 45 to 55% of your calories coming from carbohydrates. Divide that by 4. Remember, there's 4 calories per gram. So if I do it by calorie, make sure that you divide that number. If you do 50% of 2,000, then divide that number by 4 to get that number. So if your carb intake is too low, your body is going to use protein and fat for energy. Okay, so carbohydrates are protein sparing. They spare the protein that you're eating to be able to do its job, to be able to repair and rebuild. Okay, so the goal is to make sure that we're spreading those carbohydrates out at every meal. You want some kind of a complex carb, so that's bread, cereal, rice, pasta, tortillas, starchy vegetables like potatoes, peas, corn, any of those kinds of things. We want to have that at every meal, just a little bit at least at every meal. So spread those carbohydrates out throughout the meal. Of course, your fruits and vegetables are also going to have carbohydrates. So if you're heavier on the fruits and vegetables and you want to go a little lighter on the grains, okay, as long as you're getting some, some carbohydrates in there. All right. And then also, of course, incorporate those carbs into your snacks, especially after exercise. I know everyone always thinks like protein, protein, protein after exercise, but we also need some carbohydrates after exercise as well. Okay. All right. So carbohydrates, what are they? So again, it's your body's preferred source of energy. There's two types of carbohydrates. We have simple carbohydrates that are the quick energy. So this is going to be the sugars, all right? But not just the cookies, candies, sugary things like I mentioned here, but also sugars like fructose that is in fruit, or lactose that is in milk. Those are simple sugars that are going to be absorbed a little bit more quickly versus complex carbohydrates that take a little bit longer to break down, to digest. If it's like a whole grain, often that will be richer in fiber, and that even takes it longer to digest. So those starches, so we want a mix of the simple and the complex carbohydrates. So when I say that carbohydrate recommendation, it's not just the simple or the complex, but kind of a mix of those. So again, we want to have those complex carbohydrates with every meal. If you don't have enough carbohydrates, I sort of mentioned this already, but I just want to I hear this so often that I'm just emphasizing the point a little bit more. Eating carbohydrates does not make you fat. Okay. Eating too much of anything can be stored as fat. So even when we get to protein next, when we talk about eating too much protein, that can be stored as fat. So, choose them wisely. So if you're going to cut back, like so again, back to like that 30 grams that, Atkins or whatever recommends. I agree that most of us eat way too many carbohydrates, but to go down to like 30 is way too little. So cut out some of those that you don't need. Cut out some of the sugar from the cookies and cakes and, ice cream and that kind of fun stuff. But keep in the beans, keep in, some rice or quinoa or whatever, definitely the fruits and vegetables, all of that. Don't not eat a banana because it's got too many carbohydrates. Absolutely not. It's got good carbohydrates in it that are going to give you good nutrients that will fuel your body with good stuff. Okay. So restricting carbohydrates also can leave you feel drained, can feel mentally exhausted. Our brains, literally the glucose in our bloodstream relies on carbohydrates. So, our nerve cells, our brain is going to be reliant on carbohydrates for fuel. So again, I know I already said this, but when you eat carbohydrates, your body actually spares some of that protein and spares your muscle. All right, so let's talk about protein. So protein is made up of amino acids. That's the building block of protein, and those help to build and repair your muscles. BCAAs, you've probably heard a lot about BCAAs. So that's branched chain amino acids. Branched chain amino acids are again, part of those essential amino acids. There's 9 essential amino acids that we need in order to function on a regular basis. I'm not a huge believer in taking pills of BCAAs or a powder of BCAAs, because if you're eating food, if you're having a snack or a meal after your workout, it's good. Okay. You can get some of that in your diet. However, quality matters. Okay. So this is where it's going to get a little bit interesting. And I'm going to talk about some more recent research that's been out on this whole idea of protein. So I know that, the whole plant-based thing has been very popular in the past couple of years, ever since Game Changers came out, and huge fan. Okay. Huge fan of plant-based. In fact, we all pretty much eat plant-based. So plant-based doesn't mean you need to become a vegan, that you need to become a vegetarian. It just means that most of your diet comes from plants. In fact, research shows that about 70% of our diets, our American diet, comes from plants. Yeah. You are eating a plant-based diet right now, unless you're doing, keto or something like that. But, most of us are eating a plant-based diet. However, the problem is we're eating the wrong kinds of plants. Number one vegetable that we eat in the US, I'm sure you can guess, is a potato. Number 2 is a tomato, but usually in ketchup or tomato sauce. And number 3 is lettuce. So, we could probably work on the quality of our plant and get that quality a little bit higher. And then of course, you know, a lot of the other plants that we're eating are going to come from, you know, wheat that's been highly processed or corn that's been highly processed and all that good stuff. So, so we want to make sure that we are getting those amino acids, and it actually takes more plant-based in order to get some of those branched chain amino acids. So the one that we hear about the most is leucine. And maybe you guys have heard of leucine. It's one of those branched chain amino acids along with, you know, the lysine. So leucine is one of those that we've found helps to trigger the uptick of the repair and the rebuild in the body. Okay, so it helps to create that repair in our body. So we want to get about 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine. It takes about 20, I wrote this down, 23 grams of whey protein to get 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine. Okay, it takes about 27 grams of egg protein, takes 33 grams of soy protein, and it takes 40 grams of a wheat or quinoa type grain protein in order to get the same amount of leucine. So it's almost twice as much from plant-based in order to get some of those essential amino acids, or especially that particular branched chain amino acid. So again, you know, I've actually, full disclosure, been a lacto-ovo vegetarian since 1992. Okay. Yes. Happy 30-year anniversary of my vegetarianism to me this year. It was when I left for college. That was the year I graduated from high school. Now y'all know how old I am. So I've been a vegetarian since then. Now I say lacto-ovo because I've always included eggs and milk. I'm from the state of Wisconsin. They don't let you back in if you don't. Yeah, just kidding. But I can't. I just love my dairy. So I definitely do Greek yogurt, cheese, you know, milk, whatever, on a regular basis. So me telling you this whole idea, like it sounds like I'm poo-pooing plant-based, but I'm not. I'm just telling you the science. Okay. So I have to work harder than you meat eaters in order to get my leucine. I need to make sure that I'm including my Greek yogurt, that I'm including my whey protein powder, that I'm including my, you know, Fairlife 30-gram drink, or my Premier Protein, you know, 30-gram drink, in order to, you know, find those sources of protein that can get me to that level. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. I can come back to this if we have more questions, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it too, but let's talk about our needs. So the RDA for protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram. Ends up being about 55, 60 grams per day. That's the RDA, that's the minimum. That's what we need just like for kind of maintenance. All right, in order to build and repair, we need more. Okay. So I'm usually recommending at least 1.2. I have on here 1.5 to 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, especially if you're trying to gain muscle mass. Okay, so again, there's an example, a 200-pound male, that's going to end up being about 136 to 164 grams of protein a day. For a 140-pound female, that's going to be 95 to 115. Again, just a reminder, if you want to figure it out for yourself, take your weight in pounds, divide by 2.2. and then multiply that by 1.5, and then do it again for 1.8, and that'll give you your range, okay? And it says here, no more than 1 gram per pound. So that's kind of the rule of thumb. That's what the research is really showing, that we can't really process more than 1 gram per pound. And this next point is the most important point of anything that you will hear me say tonight, okay? We have to. This is what some of the most recent research is showing, very exciting. We have to spread it out. Okay, just like I've emphasized when it comes to the calories and when it comes to the carb, with protein, it's like even more serious, that we have to spread it out throughout the day. So they've actually done research. They had one group that had 10 grams of protein for breakfast and 60 grams of protein for dinner, you know, to get like 70 grams of protein a day. And then they had 20 grams, I think, at lunch. Okay. So they had the 90 per day. And then they had a group that they gave 30 at breakfast, 30 at lunch, 30 at dinner. What they found was that the group that had the 30 at breakfast, 30 at lunch, 30 at dinner had better muscle recovery. recovery, better building back of those muscles. It's happening all day long, especially when we're sleeping. So that dinner meal is going to be very important. But what the researchers actually found was that it's that breakfast meal or first meal of the day, whatever you want to call it. Okay. That is the most important meal to start the process, to, like, they call it switching the, like, flipping the switch of being able to go from just like helping to work the organs to actually getting into the muscle, because the organs take your protein first. Okay. So think about it like, who's in line? Who's in line at the soup kitchen? Whoever is first in line gets the soup first. So, you know, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, your heart, all these organs that are working hard 24/7 actually take your protein first. And they take about 70% of the protein that we eat in the day goes to our organs. Okay. But if you want to flip that switch and have some go to the muscle, you got to have 30 grams. Okay. So a bowl of cereal with 4 grams in the cereal and, you know, 8 grams in the milk, 12 grams of protein at breakfast, not going to do it. Not going to do it. And if you do plant-based milk, soy milk has about the same amount of protein that that cow's milk does. But if you do almond milk, that's got 1 gram of protein. So now you got 5 grams of protein. So, you know, just think about this. This is going to be my challenge for you in the next, we don't speak again for another 2 weeks. So I want you all to focus on protein, specifically protein at breakfast. And I want to see, now you're not going to be able to measure it. You're not going to be able to see, did I flip the switch? Did I get into muscle? But that's the goal here, is to prevent muscle loss. So if your goal is to lose weight during this challenge, which I know not everyone is on a weight loss, they're just trying to do improvements. But if you are trying to lose weight in this challenge, I know you're doing InBodies before and after. My goal, and hopefully your goal, is to not lose any of that as muscle, or little of that as muscle. And so this is going to be one of the important things that you need to do, is think about 30 grams of protein, especially at breakfast and dinner. They haven't studied lunch as much, but I'm assuming that lunch is going to be just as important too. Middle of the day, you know, you're still moving and grooving for the rest of the day. And, you know, again, after exercise. So, you know, if you're a morning exerciser, then definitely it's a no-brainer. You have to have 30 grams. And then about 55 grams is where we top out of, don't really do much with that. And really you've got a 2-hour window where you're anabolic after a meal. Okay. Anabolic means using that protein and using, you know, your organs and your muscles are going to be using that protein. So, you know, you about top out at that 55 grams per meal. So again, you know, if you're aiming for 160 grams, you're a guy and you're aiming for 160 grams per day. Now we're talking, you know, 50 at lunch, 50 at breakfast, 50 at lunch, 50 at dinner. That's 150. Okay. And of course you can, you know, spread that out a little. And that's where I would say you don't need much more than that. Don't need much more than 50, 55 at a meal. Now you have to think about, where am I going to get it in my snacks? Okay. So a lot of the athletes that I work with who are trying to gain muscle and, you know, trying to get that much protein in a day are definitely going to have more snacks and have some of those snacks as protein. Okay. All right. Let me see. I saw a question pop up while I was talking about protein. So I'm going to just answer it real quick. So what if you can't eat whey protein, typically eat pea protein like Orgain or Vega? Yeah, that's fine, Madison. If you want to do the pea protein, that's great, but just know, you know, soy protein is a complete protein, meaning it has all of the essential amino acids. It just doesn't have as much as whey. Okay. So yeah, pea protein is going to have some, you know, obviously is going to have protein. It might have 20 grams in a scoop of protein powder, but the amount of leucine, lysine, methionine, you know, valine, tryptophan, all of these essential and branched chain amino acids that we're talking about may not be as high in that. And so you're just going to have to eat a little bit more. Okay. So maybe, aim for 35 to 40 grams as your minimum if you're plant-based. Okay. And oh, by the way, as we age, we actually are finding more and more that our anabolic, it takes more to become more anabolic, that it's harder and harder for us. So I mentioned, about the age of 35, 36, 37 is where we start to actually be able to see it measurably, in these research studies and stuff where they measure muscle. So we lose about 4% of our muscle mass per decade after the age of about 36. Okay. So if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s on the call right now, yeah. We gotta really focus on this protein and spreading it out throughout the day and making sure that we're having a decent amount at breakfast and at dinner and all of that good stuff. Okay. All right. So where are my sources of protein? Okay. Beef, poultry, fish, eggs, animal protein, milk, cheese, yogurt. Those are your animal proteins. Then we have the nuts and the seeds and the beans and the soy. I have that asterisk because that's going to be your plant-based protein. And again, you might need just a little bit more. And that's the hard part, is that, vegetarians tend to eat less protein because it's harder to get it and there aren't as many amino acids in it. So if you can have a goal of trying to get, at least 100 grams of protein a day, or that 30, 30, 30, that would be a great goal for the next couple of weeks, or, for this challenge, the 6-week challenge. All right. And then, it is fine. I get this question all the time. It is absolutely fine to get protein from pills and powder. Well, not pills, powders. You don't really do protein pills, but powders, shakes, that kind of stuff. So I mentioned, like the protein drinks. I do that a lot. I do protein powder, Greek yogurt, trying to get, bars. I love my Built bars. You can do Quest bars, One bars, some of these bars that are just like the, 15, 17, 20 grams of protein per bar. Great. That is a great way to get the protein. And a lot of times it's a whey-based protein. Of course, you can get the plant-based bars as well. But again, just know that it's going to take a little bit more to get all of those essential amino acids from some of those bars. Okay. I know, Stephen, the Built bars are amazing. Those are my favorite. Because I have a huge sweet tooth. They just stick to your teeth. So you gotta work on that. But all right, so let's talk about fat, that last and final macronutrient that we're going to talk about. So fat is necessary in order for our bodies to function properly. We need, there's another typo, sorry, need about 20 to 35% of our calories coming from, so with fat, I don't calculate it. You can see that with the protein and the carbohydrates, I calculated it based on your body weight. Whereas with fat, we kind of more calculate it based on your percentage of calories. So an example, if you're following a 2000 calorie diet, that would give you about 44 to 78. Again, big range there. So just depending on, like, if you're trying to get all your protein in, if you're trying to get 100 grams of protein, like figure out that's, 400 calories from your, total calories for the day. So now you have to figure out, like, where else am I, how can I fit in those carbohydrates? And then maybe fat is sort of what's left over. Once you meet your fat and your carbohydrate and your protein needs, then whatever's left over in terms of the calories that you're shooting for can come for those fats, because it's not quite as necessary when it comes to, when it comes to weight loss. But like I said, it's very calorie dense too. So we want fat, but again, this is the one where if you're going to skimp on something, I would go a little bit lower in the fat. Now it does fill you up a little bit, gives you a little satiety. So we don't want to go too low fat. And it is necessary for hormones. It helps us release some of that estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all of that good stuff. And it helps with a lot of vitamin and mineral absorption. I'm sure you guys all know, but some of the healthy sources are going to be those oils, that olive oil, as I mentioned, flaxseed oil is another good one. Avocado is good. Nuts and seeds. Those are all going to be really good sources of that quote unquote healthy fat. But again, just know that 9 calories per gram, and it can add up quite quickly when you start, drizzling the olive oil or dipping the bread and soaking that olive oil up. It can add up quite quickly. Okay, so let's talk about creatine for a minute, because whenever I start talking about muscle growth, I get questions about this, and I am a fan of creatine. Your body naturally produces creatine from the amino acids that we're eating, but supplementation, as you can see, it's in quotes, may help to increase muscle volume, but everybody responds differently. Some people do experience some GI distress from taking a creatine powder. It does hang on to water. So some people do report, a lot of people report kind of hanging, that muscle, the water weight gain from it, and can get some muscle cramping because it can kind of throw off that electrolyte imbalance a little bit. So the best way to do creatine is with a cycle. So 1 week of doing a little bit higher, like 20 to 25 grams, and that would be a more heavy lift week. And then a maintenance dose is going to be about 5 grams. You could just do a maintenance dose all the time, about 5 grams. That's fine. I gave a couple of brands that are good, high quality, clean, profile. They're NSF certified. That's what I'm always looking for when I'm working with athletes who get drug tested on a regular basis. So those are some good, nice brands if you are looking for a creatine. So again, not sure that it's gonna, turn you into huge muscle guy, but could help a little bit when it comes to some muscle. And women, we can do creatine as well, not just for men. All right, sleep is really where the magic happens though. So your body repairs while you're sleeping. This is when growth hormone is released. Your amino acids are working hard while you're sleeping. It's repairing not just your muscle, but again, a lot of those organs are getting repaired and restored while you're sleeping as well. So that 7 to 9 hours of continuous sleep is going to be important. And I just have some tips here for getting a better night's rest. And I forgot to put this on the screen, but if you can write this down, if you go to TED, TED.com, so TED Talks, put in Matthew Walker. Matthew Walker is the leading sleep researcher in the world. He wrote a book, just grabbed it from my shelf, called Why We Sleep, but his TED Talk is called Sleep is Your Superpower. He's got several TED Talks. So that's why I encourage you just to put his name into the search, because then you can see a bunch of ones, like he has one on alcohol, one on caffeine, one on this, one on that. So, so you can kind of see like where you may need to, have a little bit more emphasis. But Sleep is Your Superpower is an 18-minute video that will change your life. if right now you think sleep is only when you're dead. No, yeah, we need it right now. And again, just like I said about muscle as we age, sleep is really important for those babies, but it's also really important at all stages of life. But even as we get older and it's harder to build and repair those muscles, sleep is going to be part of that equation, believe it or not. So, so these are some of the tips that Matthew Walker has, in addition to like temperature, 65 degrees, to sleep at night, definitely dark, definitely no noises, try to eliminate anything that will wake you up in the middle of the night, like dogs and snoring and any of that kind of stuff. Of course, we can only control so much when we're cohabiting with other people, but try to do what you can. All right, so I just wanted to at least mention sleep when we talk about muscle growth, because it is such an important part of that. So just to summarize, and then I will open it up to some questions. We want to pay attention to that supply and demand. That's why I wanted to review what we talked about last time in case you weren't here, but also just to reemphasize how important that is to eat before and after exercise, to spread those calories out, to limit portions on rest days as well. I didn't talk about that, but yet I threw it in the summary. So if you are going to go above, any day, try to do it. Or if you're going to eat more on any day, try to do it on your heaviest exercise day versus, on that rest day. And then spreading the food out throughout the day, aiming for those 30 grams of protein in every meal. And then of course, spreading out the carbs and the protein too. And then trying to just get a mix of the carbs, the protein and fat at every meal, and trying to get some kind of a fruit or vegetable at every single meal as well. All right, so I'm going to put us back into the Brady Bunch and open it up to questions. So you can throw it into the chat. I'm looking right at the chat right now, or if you want to be brave and come off mute and just throw out an answer, or if you want to do it and raise your hand, however you want to do it, I am open for questions. Anyone have one out loud? as I read the one that's in the chat, and I'll answer that one, but feel free to yell one out if you have one. Okay, so who was this? Ms. K. So you calculated your macros and you're supposed to eat approximately 28. That's way too much protein. How did you calculate 245 grams of protein?
I watched a YouTube video.
Okay, so that's, yeah, that's a lot. That's 35%.
Okay.
Times 0.35, if I'm doing the math right. Yeah, that's 35%, which is the highest amount percentage-wise you would do, but 2,800 seems a lot for a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you're like 6'2". How tall are you? You don't have to tell me your weight in front of everyone, but how tall are you?
I'm 5'5".
Okay, yeah. So you don't
and
need
I don't mind telling you my weight.
Okay, you don't need 2,800 calories.
Okay.
So instead, what I would do is, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I would, well, if you want to, I mean, I can calculate it real quick for you if you want to tell me
Yeah.
weight in front of everybody.
Sure, it's 230.
Okay, so 230, and you said you're 5'5"?
Yes,
And how old are you?
36.
36. Okay. So your resting metabolism, based on just calculations here, okay, this isn't taking into account your body composition and all that, is 1791. So that's 1,800 calories. Then when we add in just normal daily activity, it's about 2,300 calories. And then with exercise, it might be 2,800 calories. If you're doing a heavy exercise, like burning 500 calories, that would be a full hour or more of pretty intense exercise to burn, 500 or more. But I say you don't need that much because we want to lose, right? So yeah, so 2,800 calories, you're definitely not going to lose on that. So what I would do is try to eat, for you, I would try to eat around 2,000 to 2,200. That way you're still less than what you need with daily activity, but like closer to, yeah, probably 2,000, closer to like what your resting metabolism is. So any movement and exercise throughout the day is helping you to get further, but we're not going to get so low that your body's going to start eating away the muscle. So yeah, I would say right around 2,000 would be good. And so at your weight, see, we want to, so what I usually do is calculate based on goal weight. So because at your current weight,
My goal weight is 170.
okay, so at 170, that would be 77 kilos times 1.5 is 115 grams of protein. So yeah, that's way too, so cut that protein that you were saying. And then, so 2,000 calories times like, let's say 45%, that would give you about 225 grams of carbs. And then that's too much fat too. So 2,000 times, let's say, that would be about 55 grams of fat. Okay, so try those numbers and see if that is gonna, yeah, you would gain weight on that amount.
Thank you.
All right. So Ryan, you mentioned the benefits of having protein within an hour of getting up in the morning. Is there a rule of thumb when to avoid taking protein or generally before eating that? So I didn't say you have to have protein within an hour of getting up. I said you have to eat something within an hour of getting up. So ideally carbohydrates first thing in the morning, because you need energy. So if you're going to have breakfast within an hour of getting up and you're exercising later in the day, then yeah, have protein and have carbohydrates and have it all. But if you're just looking for like a quick little snack before your workout, that's where carbs are going to be more your friend. You don't need like a protein shake before your workout. You really more need carbohydrates. So that fruit, that, you could do yogurt that has carbs and protein. I mean, you could do a little bit of protein, but I would focus more on the carbs or a combo of the carbs and protein. But I think more your question was on when to avoid taking in protein. So yeah, there isn't really a time of day that I would say don't eat protein. Taking it before bed is a good idea if you're, as we're trying to, that's the longest time of the day that we're going without food. But that also doesn't mean you need to like have a T-bone before bed, so if you just want to have, a little snack before bed, it also depends on how far dinner was. So, if dinner was within 2-3 hours of bedtime, you don't need anything else. Okay. But if dinner was at 5, you're going to bed at 10:30. Yeah. Have a snack, if it's more than 3 hours, then maybe have a protein snack. So that could be, a Greek yogurt. It could be some beef jerky. It could be, a combo of carbs and protein. That, like one of these little protein shakes, or it could be a little cereal with a little bit of milk or something like that, or a bar, a Built Bar or something like that. So does that help? Okay. All right, Samantha, what kinds of things should we eat before and after a workout? Should we eat something light before a workout? Yeah, definitely something light before, because you don't want to puke all over F45. And then something bigger after to repair, to replace. So before, I think I just mentioned this. So before, primarily carbohydrates, after combo, carbs, protein, and fat. Okay, so a meal after, or if it's not time for a meal, at least get some like carbs and protein. So maybe, a protein shake and a banana, or, again, a yogurt or a bar, or, something like that right after the workout. And then within 2 hours, you'll probably be ready for like that next meal, which would be, a meal should be carbs, protein, and a fruit or vegetable. So that gives you all of those macronutrients as well. Okay. How do I feel about carb cycling? Yeah, so that is one thing and actually there was someone I did this with, one of you guys, one of my F45 clients in the last challenge, because she was stumping me. And we could not move the needle, and it was like frustrating. And so I did have her carb cycle a little bit, which normally I don't necessarily do that, because usually we can see progress without having to do that. So for the rest of you that are like, what the heck is she talking about carb cycling? So kind of going up and down a little bit in your carbs. So doing one day that like might be, kind of that bare minimum of 130 grams. And then one day that might be more like 180 grams and, something like that. So I do that though, while very carefully looking at how intense your exercise is. So that's where like kind of that last tip that was on the last slide, rest day might be the really low day, because I don't supply and demand. I don't need it. I don't need as much today. So I'm going to go my lowest on my rest day and my highest on the day that I'm burning the most, which probably will still give you a deficit. Unless we go super high, but, our goal is to still have a deficit on those days, just try to more match. So that's what I do with carb cycling, is I cycle it according to how hard your workouts are, not just randomly like picking, a very light day and a very heavy day, if that makes sense. Hopefully that answered the question. If it didn't, okay. And the other people just said, thank you. Okay. So come off mute. Madison did that. Let's go to you. If you're still here, did that make sense? Do you have any follow-up questions about that, about the carb cycling?
Yeah, no, that made sense. I did it for the last challenge, and it really helped, rather than just quote unquote like eating healthy.
Yeah.
And like you said, it finally helped move the needle. So then I was just curious what your input was.
Yeah, if I've got someone that's really plateauing, or down to that last like couple of pounds, 5 pounds type thing, we do have to get creative sometimes. And so, really getting down to the nitty gritty with that kind of detail might be necessary. So good. I'm glad that worked for you. Good. All right. Let's see. Any other questions? Any questions you want to throw into the chat or come off mute and ask? I hope this helped. to kind of take the, the mystery out of what are macros and how do I, figure them out, and how do I distribute them, and how do I grow muscle. That was my goal, was that you kind of got a few tips on all of those things tonight. Next time in 2 weeks, I think what I'm going to do is talk about the mind eating thing, again, going back to kind of that connection between the brain and the stomach, and how do I stop when I'm satisfied, not go to the overfull, that kind of thing, but not allow myself to get ravenously hungry either. And some tips and tricks for that. And then maybe I'll throw supplements into that one as well. One of these times we're going to talk about supplements as well. So I'll make sure that I do that. But if you have any other suggestions for topics, feel free to throw those in the chat, or you guys can email me. I'll put my email in the chat as well, in case you didn't write it down when I had it on the screen. But it's just tara@dietdiva.net. So if you have any suggestions for our last two. So we meet again in 2 weeks on Zoom, I think same time, same place. And so next week is Super Bowl Sunday. So let me just say a word about Super Bowl Sunday. The Thanksgiving is the #1 eating holiday of the year, as you can imagine. Super Bowl is #2. According to statistics. Okay. So you might be like, what? Super Bowl's next week and it's not an eating event for you. Great. Okay. But for some of you, you're like, yeah, I'm all about the food in the commercials. So just be careful. Okay. Be careful. Just know that you probably will be eating, and a lot of it's like dips. I feel like dips and weighing pizza and, beer and, all kinds of stuff. So, so just be careful, enjoy. That's my big thing, is when you have an event that's close and near and dear to your heart. Oh, and then the next day is Valentine's Day. So there may be some eating out, there may be some chocolate and dessert involved. So we got two days back to back that we have to be careful of. And again, Valentine's Day may mean nothing to you. But if it does, and if Super Bowl is going to be a tough day for you, that's what I want you to do about this challenge too, is think about eating events or activities or whatever, social events that are going to be a challenge for you in the next week. And because we're not talking for 2 weeks now, the next 2 weeks. So those are two that just are popular, identifiable in the next 2 weeks. You may have personal ones. It might be your birthday. It might be, some kind of a special dinner, whatever. So, my biggest thing with special events is make sure that you work out that day, supply and demand. Make sure that you're demanding. It's a Sunday. Maybe that's normally a rest day, but maybe you can just go out for a walk around the neighborhood. Maybe it's not an intense exercise day for you, but maybe you do a little more than you normally do, just to kind of balance that out. And just really pay attention to the atmosphere, the people, all of that, and not just, sitting at the food, and maybe just try to stay away from the food table. So it's not right in front of you, or the bowl of chips right in front of you, try to be smart about that. Take things on a plate instead of just standing next to the table and doing the chip in the, in the bowl, so that you're conscious of how much that you are taking. And, if you're hosting, or if you're bringing, a dish, then, you can be the one bringing the plate of vegetables if you want to be. You can always bring something a little bit on the healthier side that that you can eat and enjoy, if you don't want to just be, at someone else's mercy as well. And just remember, it's not just about the what, but it's the how much. So you can have some of it, but just be careful of the how much. So Sandra, email me and I'll send you, if anyone wants a copy of the presentation that I gave tonight, I can fix the typos and then send it to you, especially when it said grams of protein when it was supposed to say grams of carbohydrate. So yeah, I will send that to you if you just email me, Sandra. I'll email to you. All right, guys, it's 7:58. We got 2 more minutes. If anyone has any other questions, happy to answer them. Please give me topics, ideas, if you want any other ideas, or just email them to me later. And other than that, just sign off if we're done. Tina, anything else?
No, that was great. Thank you again. 2 weeks, we'll be back for the next one. Let us know what topics you guys want, and I'll make sure Tara gets them. But we're all We're all good.
All right, guys, good luck. I will see you in 2 weeks.